emotions, aspirations, and hope. And above all, these are women, men, and children with basic human rights and needs. Unfortunately, while the need increase, they are not matched with increased funding, but rather the opposite. In 2024, the global humanitarian needs were estimated at 56.7 billion, and funding was only partially met, with a funding gap of around 40 to 50%, leaving many people in need deprived of basic services. 2025 threatens to be even more challenging, with increased humanitarian burden globally and decreased humanitarian funding landscape. In 2025, millions of people are in urgent need of life-saving health due to conflicts, displacement, disease outbreaks, and climate change. I'm Dr. Ahmed Zwieten, the Regional Emergency Director for WHO Eastern Mediterranean Office, and will be the moderator for this session. I have the honor now to ask our Director General, Dr. Tedros, to take the floor. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Do I come there or?
From your side.
Yes. From here? Okay.
Up to you, by the way.
Okay, maybe it's opening. Thank you. Since it's a WHO appeal, maybe I do it from here to show respect and appreciate the support. Your Excellency, Dr. Abdullah Rabi'a, and my colleague, Tom Fletcher, Excellencies, distinguished partners, dear colleagues and friends. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to say happy anniversary to KS Relief. It's 10 years, and of those 10 years, I worked with KS Relief for more than 7 years now, and I'm a living witness of all the impact that KS Relief is having globally. And I join Ahmed in thanking Saudi Arabia, and especially our friend Dr. Rabi'a for the generosity and support and for saving lives from Gaza to Ukraine and many countries in between. So thank you so much and happy anniversary. This is a time of many overlapping challenges with long-running conflict, climate and resource crisis, and life-threatening food insecurity. Humanitarian actors are facing an impossible choice: whom to help and whom to leave behind. As we speak, we're responding to outbreaks of Marburg virus disease in Tanzania and Ebola in Uganda. With prompt action, we have already helped bring a number of disease outbreaks under control, including Marburg in Rwanda and cholera in 27 of 33 affected countries. Meanwhile, the Mpox outbreak continues in DRC and other countries in Africa. WHO is coordinating donations of 6 million vaccine doses across 15 countries, but insecurity and scarce resources are limiting the speed and scale of vaccination. We're also responding to conflict and insecurity in Gaza, Haiti, Lebanon, Sudan, Ukraine, and elsewhere. Last September, I visited Sudan, which has now endured almost 2 years of civil war. And yet, the world has largely ignored it. The following week, I was in neighboring Chad, where I met some of the 950,000 Sudanese refugees who have crossed into Chad seeking security and food. More than 15 million people, 30% of the population of Sudan, have fled their homes, making Sudan the largest displacement crisis in the world. About 30 million people, 2/3 of the population, need humanitarian assistance. In response, WHO is working with partners to support vaccination programs for cholera, polio, and measles. Despite the conflict, we have supported the rollout of malaria vaccines for the first time. We have provided medication for people with non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease, and much more. In Gaza, although the fighting has stopped for now, the task of rebuilding Gaza and its health system is only just beginning. Only half of Gaza's 36 hospitals are functioning, even partially. Since the ceasefire began, WHO has sent 139 trucks with supplies of 1.6 million people. We provide 60% of all medical supplies and 100% of the fuel for hospitals in Gaza. We have also supported the evacuation of 414 patients and 588 companions, including children with cancer. Since the start of the conflict, WHO has coordinated the deployment of 52 emergency medical teams, which performed more than 36,000 emergency surgeries and treated almost 86,000 trauma cases. Together with our partners, we negotiated a humanitarian pause and vaccinated more than 500,000 children to stop a resurgence of polio. We have also sent emergency supplies to hospitals in response to the escalating violence in the West Bank. It's important to note the worrying trend of attacks on healthcare in places like Gaza, Lebanon, Sudan, and Ukraine. Last year, WHO verified more than 1,500 attacks on healthcare in 15 countries and territories. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, in 2025, we estimate that more than 300 million people around the world will require urgent humanitarian assistance. The WHO Health Emergency Appeal for 2025 identifies the resources required to address 42 ongoing health emergencies, including 17 grade 3 crises, the most severe. WHO is seeking $1.5 billion to support our life-saving work for the emergencies we know about and to react swiftly to new crises. This past year, global health sector funding met barely 40% of needs. What was already a constrained economic environment has become dramatically worse, with the US announcement of its intention to withdraw from WHO and to curtail foreign assistance. Now is not the time to retreat. It's the time to do more, to support the most vulnerable, to bolster health systems, and to build back promptly and well. Because WHO's funding premise, and my sincere belief, is that health is an investment in stable, productive, and peaceful societies. It's an investment in the future. With a presence in over 150 countries, WHO acts before, during, and after emergencies, from coordinating and delivering large-scale humanitarian health responses to bolstering and helping to rebuild vulnerable health systems. In an increasingly fractured world, your support helps to ensure that WHO remains a lifeline for millions of people worldwide, a source of health and source of hope. I thank you. Shukran jazilan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros. Indeed, the world is facing increased global humanitarian burden and a shrink in funding support in a constrained economic world, forcing humanitarian actors to prioritize among those to receive support and those to be left behind. I hope that the world will not allow that to happen. Now, let us turn to the people that we serve and the people that are the most affected by emergencies around the world, and also the heroic work that is being done by the humanitarian workers around the globe, and WHO is always with them. So we will see a short movie and then we'll continue the interventions. Can we have the movie, please? In this video, we see and we witness the immense suffering that communities around the world are enduring. And the only way to overcome those challenges is to come together in collaboration, in solidarity, and in partnership. Next, we will hear from one of WHO's key partners, key supporters, personally and also as the head, as the Supervisor General of King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. I have the pleasure to call upon His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Rabi'a to share his.
Well, since you insisted to stand, Dr. Tedros, I cannot sit next to you. Excellencies, colleague, co-panelist, let me welcome you as a panelist and special welcome to the Undersecretary Tom Fletcher. We really appreciate that you're changing your plans and coming to join us and certainly the forum will value your presence with us. Firstly, I would like to also express my appreciation to Dr. Tedros for agreeing that the December 2024 to launch the WHO Health Emergency Appeal for the year 2025 here at the 4th Riyadh International Humanitarian Forum. Indeed, this forum is an ideal stage upon which to open this crucially important appeal, since this gathering is already focused on improving hope and alleviating suffering. By funding this appeal, donors contribute to enhancing and improving the ability of WHO and other humanitarian organizations to scale up the delivery of health aid and services during emergencies. Today, the world is experiencing an unprecedented numbers of devastating and a large-scale crises, from ongoing violent conflicts to political instability and the effects of climate change. All of these are resulting in mass displacement and suffering at staggering levels, and are major challenges to meeting even the most basic health care needs of vulnerable groups, particularly children and women, the elderly, and those with disabilities and chronic illnesses. We have witnessed many of them in countries that we work together with WHO. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, through its commitment and through its humanitarian arm, KS Relief, regards global health as one of the top priorities, and also in its aid provision strategy for addressing the consequences of conflict, natural disasters, displacement, and other emergencies. since 2015, and thank you also, Dr. Tedros, for witnessing 7 years of our life, which is 70% of our age. We have actually worked with 211 valuable partners, mostly the UN and international and regional NGOs. And in cooperation with WHO, KS Relief has implemented 46 projects in 12 countries at a cost exceeding 356 million. This is excluding today's signing, which is for the polio and also for malaria, just signed minutes ago. So we hope this will bring this to more than 600 million, actually more than 700 million together. For the past decade, KS Relief has worked with WHO to deploy emergency medical interventions and provide essential healthcare services to displaced populations in conflict zones, refugee and IDP camps, and other communities in need. KS Relief supports WHO-led initiatives to fight cholera, polio, malaria, and other diseases to help ensure that at-risk populations receive vaccinations, comprehensive medical interventions, and preventive care. Let me put actually the most number one for me as a doctor in the prevention, although it should be medical and vaccinations, but in today's life, it's stopping conflict. I think this is priority number one. I urge governments, humanitarian organizations, and donors worldwide to set up their commitments to prioritize health as a fundamental pillar of humanitarian response by enhancing emergency health interventions and building community resilience. We can save and protect millions of people around the world who are depending on us. I strongly encourage all donor countries and entities, and we should not forget the private sector, to give generously to the 2025 WHO Health Emergency Appeal, because every life we save is precious. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Indeed, the cooperation between WHO and KS Relief has been a blessing for many people that we serve around the world. Thank you very much. We will now hear from our esteemed partners delivering health in conflicts-affected areas and hard-to-reach areas. I have the pleasure to call upon Ms. Melanie Johnson, Deputy Health Director from UK Med in Gaza.
Your Excellencies, sirs, moms, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be invited here today to talk to you about UK Med, about our work in Gaza, and also about how coordination by WHO and our collaboration with WHO and UN agencies has facilitated us to be successful in those interventions, including seeing over 370,000 patients within Gaza at this point. For those of you who don't know us, UK Med are a Manchester-based NGO, so from the UK. We're a WHO-verified emergency medical team, and we're also the lead partner for the UK's humanitarian health response, the UK EMT. So we're quite busy. We've been responding to health crises globally for over 30 years now and respond to a wide variety of those crises. So everything from earthquakes to outbreaks and, of course, in this case, conflict. We've been responding in Gaza in particular since January of 2024. I've just returned from my third rotation there 2 weeks ago, so it's been interesting to see the progression of that response from the early days to where we are now in the event of the ceasefire. Our activities started with life-saving trauma care, with surgical care teams, and expanded to include primary care mobile teams as we saw the infrastructure of health being destroyed within the country, and we, along with the world, witnessed the development of a truly pervasive health crisis that we know today. At the end of March, my first deployment there, we opened a full Type 2 field hospital, and that was a testament to the tenacity and ingenuity of the leadership team on the ground and the logisticians, as well as to the incredible partnership between organizations, including WHO, that facilitated not just the access of teams, but access to basic equipment and basic things that we take for granted in normal responses, such as getting supplies in country. It's been a tough road, but since we've gone on to open a primary care centre in Deir al-Balah, so in the middle area of Gaza, and there we've seen up to 450 patients a day and witnessed a growing number of decompensated, non-communicable disease patients as long-term access to critical medications has taken its toll. These are patients with things that would normally be completely manageable, so diabetes, hypertension, who are now becoming extremely ill over the months because they can't access those basic services. That facility that I've named, the PHC, has been funded in great part by WHO. And I think there was something that you said yourself, sir, about the inability to choose between different patient groups to serve when we have a limit on funding. So that's been absolutely critical in enabling us not only to run our own type 2 field hospital, but to expand into other areas and serve the population as those needs arise. 9 months ago, with the support of WHO again, and in consortium with partners such as MSF and MAP UK, we worked to rehabilitate and reopen Nasser Hospital, which many of you may have heard of as being the largest medical facility in the south of Gaza. Actually, with the destruction of various hospitals to date, it's now the largest functional facility in the whole country and is an absolute linchpin of the response. So UK Med run the emergency department there in cooperation with the MOH and with our national counterparts. And as part of that, we support over 350 staff members, national staff. And these are people who, in order to continue their life-saving work, have a requirement for the basics of capacity building and being able to feed their families. And it's through funding from WHO as well as our own work that we've been able to do that and provide that resource to them. Thankfully, the number of trauma patients now is significantly reduced in the post-ceasefire scenario, but the traffic continues. So we still see many patients every day, in their hundreds at least, and we're seeing new cases such as people being injured by UXO, so unexploded ordnance, as they return to their homes in the attempt to rebuild their lives. So it's critical that those facilities remain open and that we don't look away from those services, but rather look to expand. WHO coordination has been critical for all emergency medical teams, not just ourselves, and all organisations throughout this response. It's very evident from Gaza that good coordination does save lives, and that's at all levels. So we can look to the polio response, for example, to see how coordination was absolutely critical in making that function, but also to the more basic day-to-day running of the response. So these problems with access, the inability to cross from the border from Karam Shalom without AVs, some of those being driven by UN and WHO staff who are not there as drivers, but they're acting outside their remit in order to facilitate and support us in any way that they can. And of course, supplies. Everybody here, I'm sure, is aware that the ability to get supplies across the border at times has been completely impossible. There have been months when we've been unable to bring in the supplies that we need for our hospital. And during those times, WHO has acted as a bridge, has provided critical medications and surgical supplies so that we can continue service and make sure that we can support these people regardless of what we are and aren't able to bring into the country. Excuse me. I think in summary, it just remains to say that having been on the ground and having seen the impact of the ceasefire, now is not the time to step back from what we've been doing in Gaza over the last 14 months. Now is the time to scale up, to take advantage of this situation. We're all very aware that it's fragile, but there is hope. I can tell you from my national staff colleagues that there's a great deal of looking to the future. 38,000 babies were born in Gaza last year, and all of those people are going to need healthcare services going forward. And as a member of the international community, it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we continue to move forward and support WHO and their partners in the provision of that care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Melanie. It's really heartwarming to see that coordination and collaboration can save life. And I use the same sentence. It's also the motto of OCHA, coordination saves life. I witnessed it when I was the Global Health Cluster Coordinator in the past, and I witnessed it in the field, and I think we have the best person to actually talk to us about this. I have the pleasure to call upon His Excellency Mr. Tom Fletcher, the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator. He will share his views on the crucial role of partner coordination during humanitarian crisis. Sir, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Dr. Abiye, Dr. Tedros. I feel very humbled with 2 doctors at least, maybe more already on the panel, colleagues, humanitarians. I want to pick up from where Melanie finished. There is hope. There is hope. And we're in a moment internationally when the narrative is that the world is in retreat from humanitarian action. The narrative is that the world does not have time or energy or money for the 305 million people that you described. 305 million people who right now are in dire need. But we're here in Riyadh to say that we're not in retreat. We are not running away from those 305 million people, but we will run towards them. And that is why I wanted to be here to support the extraordinary work of the WHO and of KS Relief. Dr. Tedros is not just a great friend and colleague at the United Nations. He is our leader. He is our inspiration for our humanitarian work. And at every point when we despair as humanitarians, it is Dr. Tedros who says, there is hope. And KS Relief have been here 10 years is a short time, but it probably feels a long time as well. And we can measure that in years, but I prefer to measure it in terms of lives saved. Millions of lives saved because of the generosity and creativity and wisdom of KS Relief. Now, why do I still feel there is hope? When I was in Darfur in November, I visited a vaccination center where WHO staff were working from dawn to dusk to vaccinate thousands of people, and the lines were stretching for miles of people waiting for their vaccinations. And I asked Alia, one of the members of staff, if you can only vaccinate 200 people today, what do you think? Do you not feel despair about the line that you won't reach? And she said, it's my job to vaccinate those 200. It's your job to get the support for those that I can't reach today. And that is our job, and it's our job in the years ahead of us. I went recently to Aleppo, and I visited a hospital being supported by WHO, and I met 2 sisters whose parents had been blown up in an accident, unexploded ordnance, while they were on the back of the motorbike. I can't share their names with you because they don't yet know that their parents are dead. And I asked the older sister whether she saw hope. Her legs had been blown off from the knee down, and she looked across at her younger sister, 5 years old, and she said, I'm going to be a surgeon so I can fix my sister's legs. That's the work that WHO are doing on the front lines of the humanitarian effort, and they're doing it with the support and partnership of KS Relief. And one final story, I was recently in Gaza, and I visited 2 hospitals in the north of Gaza. Al-Auda Hospital, which was the only hospital able to stay functioning through almost 15 months of bombardment. And Al-Shifa Hospital, which has been reduced to rubble. And yet in both those hospitals, doctors and medical workers continue to turn up day after day, even under sniper fire, even when the drones flew through the window of the ward in which they were operating and tried to take them out. They carried on serving the people that we are here for. And the striking thing in those hospitals, I met one woman, Zainab, who had waited outside that hospital for her cancer treatment for 4 days. Her son had accompanied her to the hospital, shot by a sniper just across the road. And she'd watched the medical workers come out one by one to try to help her, and in turn be shot by snipers. She'd watched her son bleed out on the road. And yet when you go into that hospital, on the wall of that hospital, Dr. Mahmoud had written, "If we do not survive this, tell them that we did what we could." He was killed just days later. And I think that's a message for all of us, that we need to be able to say, tell them we did what we could. And we will do that. We will not retreat from these challenges. We will work in partnership, because we cannot deliver for those 305 million unless we have partnerships like this extraordinary partnership between KS Relief and WHO, unless we operate as one humanitarian movement, no longer hiding behind our logos or our national flags, but working genuinely, coordinating genuinely as one movement for those we serve. Because Alia, Zainab, Dr. Mahmoud, they're not waiting to see which logo comes through the door of the hospital. They're waiting for the medicine, for the vital vaccinations, for the people, the members of our movement who are walking out there, who are not in retreat, but who are advancing towards the 305 million people who we are here to serve. So thank you, Dr. Abir, for hosting this vital, vital gathering. Thank you to the WHO for your extraordinary work. Thank you to the partners who are delivering on the front lines of the humanitarian effort. And let's get this appeal funded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for sharpening our determination and reminding us of the people that we serve and how they are feeling at the everyday access to health and to other humanitarian services. We will continue and we will do what we could. So, in addition to conflict and another major driver of health emergencies is disease outbreak. And we all know what happens when we have outbreaks and pandemics and communicable diseases that affect communities. We have here Dr. Ala Al-Mudattir, the Director of International Health in Sudan, to speak to the coordination that is happening in Sudan between partners in responding to outbreaks and emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I am deeply honored to address you today at the 4th Riyadh International Humanitarian Forum. It's a privilege to be part of such an important event, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to the discussions on humanitarian issues, particularly in a region that has been heavily burdened by crisis and disease, and so is the unfortunate case of my country, Sudan. In partnership with the World Health Organization, we are launching the WHO Health Emergency Appeal 2025. This appeal aims to mobilize the resources needed to address the health emergency in 42 ongoing health emergencies in 2025, among them the health emergency in Sudan. Sudan continues to face a critical health and humanitarian crisis, with 30.4 million people in need of humanitarian assistance, 20.3 million of them needing urgent health assistance, including more than 8 million internally displaced persons. The ongoing conflict in the country has left more than 70% of country's health facilities non-operational or overwhelmed with the impact of the conflict, also being compounded by climate challenges and economic collapse. Women, children, the elderly, and the large population of displaced persons within Sudan have been particularly severely affected by the lack of available health services. The ongoing conflict has also driven over 3.5 million refugees from Sudan to the neighboring countries, where fragile systems have been placed under immense strain to accommodate the health needs of refugees from Sudan. In the midst of all these challenges, we are facing multiple diseases outbreaks in 2/3 of our states. Outbreaks of cholera, malaria, measles, and dengue are being reported from 12 states, causing illnesses, death, and threatening the very future of our nation. Cholera alone has killed nearly 1,500 people. Out of reports of over 55,000 cases from 86 localities in 12 states out of 18 states. As we all know, cholera is a disease that thrives in situations as what is currently unfolding in my dear country, Sudan, with severe constraints to safe drinking water, sanitation and hygiene, and a weakened health system. It's a disease that preys on the weakest and neediest, such as people living in the overcrowded and compromised conditions, as the 11 million internally displaced people and the communities that are generously hosting them. It's a disease that threatens to claim lives, leaving lasting marks on children and thereby steal the very future of our nation. We at Federal Ministry of Health responded aggressively to the cholera outbreak through case management, enhanced surveillance, vaccination campaigns, community engagement, and improvement of WASH activities. We established over 70 cholera treatment centers on units for severe cholera cases, serving thousands of lives. WHO-supported treatment units alone managed 5,700 cholera patients. We set up around 90 oral rehydration points to manage mild and moderate cases. We conducted cholera vaccination campaign reaching 7.4 million people. We are currently conducting the latest campaign in White Nile State, Kosti, targeting over 1 million people. Through these coordinated response efforts, together with the steadfast partners like WHO, we were recording promising declines from many of the affected states until the week that just ended. Since last Thursday, we have been receiving reports of an alarming increase in cases from Kosti, White Nile State. The cholera outbreak suddenly peaked as a result of an attack on the town's power plant, which in turn affected the main water source for Kosti, leaving people to consume contaminated water. We are doubling our efforts to respond to this outbreak thanks to WHO and other partners on the ground. This goes to show how fragile our winds are and how we must strengthen and scale up the gains we make in the response to cholera and other diseases outbreak. And this requires a steady flow of financial support. Today, the health emergency in Sudan is exacerbated by severe shortage of funding, which has been further compounded by the recent decision of the United States of America to cut aid. The consequences of this decision have been devastating. Hospitals and clinics are struggling to provide basic services and essential medicines and supplies, which were heavily dependent on US aid support, are in short supply. If we don't rise to urgently fill the gap created by this sudden move, we will risk stalling or even losing the progress we made despite the extremely challenging situation in Sudan. In addition to the support to cholera response, WHO has also contributed significantly to the health emergency response and to rebuilding and strengthening Sudan's health system. If I may list a few of these contributions. Over 500,000 patients receive services at WHO-supported primary health care facilities. Over 44,600 children with complicated severe acute malnutrition were treated at government and partners-run stabilization centers that receive WHO supplies and technical support. Out of thousands of patients that were reached with mental health and psychosocial support, over 122,000 were reached through WHO support. Vaccines are a lifeline in all situations and are a critical tool in the prevention and response to outbreaks like polio, cholera, measles. In 2024, collaborations with WHO and UNICEF helped us to reach over 7.4 million people with cholera vaccine and 5.5 million with polio vaccine. WHO has supported, despite the extreme challenges faced by the health system, Sudan has introduced malaria vaccine in close coordination with WHO and UNICEF. This is an important step in our effort to protect our people from malaria and eventually eliminate the disease for good. WHO has supported us to sustain and improve disease surveillance and response capabilities. To cite a few, 2.9 million OBD consultations were recorded through the Sudan e-wars. Door-to-door case search and detection was strengthened. Over 100 rapid response teams were trained to quickly respond to the disease outbreaks. WHO supplies, technical and operation support have been crucial in our collective response to the ongoing cholera outbreak, including case management. WHO support has enabled us to treat thousands of cholera patients at cholera treatment centers or units, at facilities run by state ministries of health, by WHO and other partners, of course. WHO has built the capacity of our healthcare workforce to detect and respond to various disease outbreaks, manage cases of severe acute malnutrition with medical complications, and address the mental health and psychosocial needs of affected population. As we look ahead to 2025 and beyond, we seek first and foremost to protect our people from epidemic-prone disease like cholera. Our people must not die of such diseases, not in 2025. We seek the solidarity of the global community to support Sudan to beat cholera and other disease outbreaks. Stand with us as we rebuild our health system to withstand shocks such as these. Help us strengthen our outbreak detection and response capacity. Help us reorganize and upskill our workforce to match the challenges ahead. Help restore health and hope for people of Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ala, and thank you for the cooperation in Sudan. Definitely, Sudan requires a strong Ministry of Health. Sudan requires a strong WHO. The world requires and needs a strong WHO, but a steady flow of humanitarian funding is paramount for that to happen. And actually, none of the critical work that we heard about today could be possible without the generous support and the partnership of our contributors. To speak about that, we have Her Excellency Ms. Patricia Danzi, Director General of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation.
Excellencies, doctors, thank you very much for hosting us and for giving your insights into what is one of the most important issues of our time, our health. We take it often for granted if we have it, and we cry over it when we lose it. And we don't want this with WHO to happen. We take it for granted when we have it, when it's strong, when it delivers, and we cry over it when it's in crisis. So it's our responsibility as donors, as partners, not for this to happen. We have, of course, asked a lot from WHO as donors, as communities, because we want it to do its normative work, for the health sector to be strong, for the pandemics not to happen, for the advice to be given to partner countries, etc. But as well, we have pushed you into emergencies, into areas where people die of diseases that they shouldn't be dying of. And this requires funding. This requires a lot of stretch from your resources, from Geneva, but also in the countries where you're working. And this is an additional challenge that we put on your organization. Switzerland is a proud host of the World Health Organization in Geneva. Geneva is a proud city of health organizations to be hosted, and WHO has 2,600 staff members in Geneva, and they collaborate very strongly with other organizations to deliver that response to the world. We have gaps in the funding today, and this is not a surprise, but it is an evident fact of our times. Priorities of government, also of my own, to shift priorities to other sectors, security, wars in the proximity of all of us, but also of the main donors, have made this shift happening. Now, what can we do? Definitely we have to stand together. We have to also stand together when we talk about reforming the system, when we talk about efficiency gains that we can do. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen on its own. It happens with advice, it happens with support. And we, as a donor, of course, money is important. Switzerland donates for the 2025 appeal 20 million for the normative work on non-communicable diseases, on mental health, but also on emergency situations like the ones we heard, Sudan, Gaza, also the Democratic Republic of Congo, not only with money, but also with staff, because we believe that staff, of course, make the difference. And when we have experienced staff to second, we also do that. How will we go about the funding gap? I always talk to my fellow donors and say, if you cannot give more, give core. Meaning the flexibility for an agency is key. So sometimes we are pressed by domestic priorities to push agencies into priorities that are not necessarily theirs, but they're ours. It happens, but we have to be very much aware that then the work of the agency is diverted from the one that we actually wanted to make. So core contributions is very important for that. So whatever donor is in the room, please remember that. And then to work together, discuss. We have the coming World Health Assembly coming up in April. We all expect you to come to Geneva and discuss these important issues alongside with us and see how we can make the organization stronger, despite the difficult times we're all in. And if we're all standing together, as we do today, we will make this happen. I very much count on all of you and on the ones that are on the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for these words of support to the health sector, to the people we serve, and also to the World Health Organization. The words that we heard today stem from partnerships, coordination, support, but there's a word or two that came strongly, the word together. But above all, we've heard from Dr. Tedros and from many of our panelists the word hope. So together, we can actually make hope happen and bring back hope to the people that we serve. We have about 7 minutes to finish, and we have 6 distinguished panelists. If I can ask you in 1 minute, with all what we heard, what is the soundbite? What is the thing that we all want to go together from this room, committing to do for the people we serve? Excellency.
Well, I think the takeaway message that there is a strong need that WHO needs support from both governments, private sector, industry, and also people. But more important, we need to put priorities and select our priorities carefully and also review our logistics to maximize the impact of our donation on the ground.
Thank you very much. Very insightful. Dr. Tedros, I'm looking at you. We are behind you and we want to hear from you. Or we leave you the last word?
You will be the last. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will be the last then.
Excellency Tom Fletcher.
I mean, just very briefly, we need to save lives. We need to get out and make sure that all the momentum that we have, every effort that we can bring to this mission is about saving lives. And we need to get rid of every obstacle to that, every bit of bureaucracy and duplication, every bit of logo or ego that gets in the way of saving lives. And a great way to get out there and save lives is to back this campaign and back Dr. Tedros and the World Health Organization.
Thank you very much. I go to you, Ms. Melanie Johnson.
I think from my side, clearly I speak largely from the INGO and partner side of the debate. And I think the one thing I would ask is that organizations and donors continue to support WHO because we can't do it alone. NGOs do not have the capability to respond to the scale of disaster and the scale of need that we are seeing without that support and that coordination. And my other plea would be to maintain the standard of that coordination. Obviously, the biggest risk is that we do harm. And without that support and that overarching oversight and dedication to quality and to serving the people that we're there to help, we can't guarantee that we're not doing harm in our actions.
Thank you very much. I go to you, Dr. Ala.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Maybe the takeaway message would be thank you very much, WHO, for all the support that have been provided. And in such dynamic and challenging operating environment that everyone is really witnessing, we would really like to see this kind of solidarity among partners. We need to stick together to achieve our common goal, after all, better, healthier globe. Thank you very much.
Excellency, Ms. Patricia Denzi.
From a donor perspective, WHO is us. We are part of it, so we are responsible for what is happening, how we do things, and how we fund it. But also important to say, strong health systems in emergencies, but also in fragile states. There is no development without healthy systems during an emergency, but also later. So this is also very important work that the organization is doing and that we are supporting.
Thank you very much. Together we have the power to overcome this immense challenges. Dr. Tedros, you have the last word.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this appeal was announced some time ago now, I think more than a month in Geneva.
End of December.
The response from some countries was that, we don't have resources, it could be very difficult to fund. Then I was in Munich last week, Munich Security Conference, attending. Maybe many of you have followed the Munich Security Conference. Very worrisome developments there. It just worried me, and asking this question, where is the world headed now? But I think that's a different one. I have only 1 minute, so I will focus on the other thing that worried me. What worried me in Munich Security Conference was all countries are increasing their military expenditure significantly. And for some countries, actually, collectively, compared to 2-3 years ago and now. They have doubled their military expenditure. When I say they have doubled, it's not a small amount of money. It's billions of tens of billions of dollars. Actually, collectively, it's even hundreds of billions of dollars. Increase. This is the increase. So the question is, the answer is, we don't have money. It's not true. There is money. The issue now is our leaders are prioritizing military expenditure rather than saving lives. And the amount which is being invested in for their military expenditure is, as I told you, in hundreds of billions of dollars, while what is being asked, for instance, for health emergency, forget about this appeal, but even all the UN OCHA appeal and so on is a fraction of what's being invested in army. So my message is, I don't agree that there is no money, there is money. But can our leaders really prioritize and maybe reach a balance? It's going to be very difficult to anyone to convince them that if they have security threats, don't invest in military. But at least they should not forget also other priorities like health. So that's what I would like to say. Please, there is a way from whatever resources you're allocating for the military expenditure, I think some could be allocated to this as well. The key is the commitment. The key is the will. If there is a will, there is a way. I think who was saying, you were saying, Director General, when we have health, then we
take it for granted.
We take it for granted. When we don't, then we cry. This is the, what do you call it, panic and neglect as well. So we neglect when there is no pandemic, for instance, like now, and then we panic when there is. So the investment during COVID pandemic was very, very high. And now that's gone down, and even to pre-previous levels, less than even the pre-previous, before COVID. So there is funding, and please try to have a look and support. But that's what I would like to share because of my observation in Munich. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, DG. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Excellencies, for your insightful remarks. And I believe that together we can continue to support the people that need us the most. Together we'll make a difference. And we'll continue. And I borrow the words from Excellency Tom Fletcher. We will do what we can. Thank you very much.
صار لنا